And yet another very wonderful morning out there to all of you, my dear friends. We left off in Isaiah 7, where the prophet Isaiah is confronting the king of Judah, Ahaz, and that is where we pick up right here into Isaiah chapter 8. Moreover, the Lord said unto me, Take thee a great roll, and write in it with a man's pen concerning Marshalahazbaz. And I took unto me faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah. Now this Maher-shalal-Ashbaz, that is the son, that is the name of his son. The prophecy that follows was clearly separated by an interval of some kind, probably about a year from that in Isaiah 7. In the meantime, much that had happened seemed to cast discredit on the prophet's words. The child that was the type of the greater Emmanuel had been born, but there were no signs as yet of the downfall of the northern kingdom. The attack of Rezin and Pekah, though Jerusalem had not been taken, had inflicted an almost irreparable blow on the kingdom of Judah. Multitudes had been carried captive to Damascus. The Edomites were harassing the southeastern frontier. The commerce of the Red Sea was cut off by Rezin's capture of Elath. To the weak and faithless Ahaz, the king of Judah, that Isaiah confronted in the previous chapter, and his counselors, it might well seem that the prospect was darker than ever, that there was no hope but in the protection of Assyria, in which God warns Ahaz, don't call upon Assyria, because they're going to do far worse damage if you have them as an ally. They'll turn on you. But he winds up calling on them anyway. If such was the state of things when the word of the Lord came to Isaiah, was he to recant and confess that he had erred? Did Isaiah doubt the prophecy? Far otherwise than that. He was to repeat all that he had said more definitely than ever. But what about Isaiah's son, the name? Maher-shalal-Ashbaz. Plunder, speeds, spoil hastens. The name of it, plunder speeds, spoil hastens. Concerning that which is signified by the name of the child, which is here mentioned by the way of anticipation, as not being given him till Isaiah 8:3. That is, concerning that which God is making haste to do, the giving up Syria and Israel for a prey to the Assyrians. So the enemies of Judah will be defeated very shortly by the Assyrians. And I went unto the prophetess, this is firmly believed to be Isaiah's wife, the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son. Then said the Lord to me, Call his name Maher-shalal-Ashbaz. For before the child shall have knowledge to cry, My father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. That's how quickly that their enemies are going to be conquered, before that the child has knowledge to cry. The Lord spake also unto me again, saying, Forasmuch as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah, or the pool of Siloam, if you will, that goes softly and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son. Apparently the people were even starting to, there was apparently some kind of conflict within Judah, and the people of Jerusalem were even beginning to seemingly turn on Ahaz and favor their enemies, Rezin, Syria, and the northern kingdom. Now therefore, behold, the Lord bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, strong and mighty, even the king of Assyria and all his glory, and he shall come up over all his channels and go over all his banks. And he shall pass through Judah, he shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel. Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear. All ye of far countries, gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. What's being said right here is how Assyria is now going to even come against everyone. And notice the symbol right here. He shall reach, the king of Assyria shall reach even to the neck. This water that's going to overflow. So almost Jerusalem is going to just drown in this overflowing of the Assyrian army. But notice what is said right here. And the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel. I think that the address is here solely to the Messiah, and that the purpose of God is to fix the mind of the prophet on the fact that the Messiah must come as an assurance that the land could not be wholly and perpetually desolate. You're not going to destroy the land because Messiah must appear. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. Now, this is mainly addressing the Assyrians. Go ahead, try all that you can. You will not destroy this people. They're protected by the Lord, as we have seen time and time and time again of the Jews. Even in the past, 100 years, especially since Christ, how many times the people have tried to destroy this people of God, and they have not succeeded. For the Lord spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, Say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say a confederacy. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. Now, what's being said right here about this confederacy? Say ye not a confederacy. Do not join in their purposes of forming a confederacy. They're wanting to ally with the Assyrians. Don't join in with this. Do not unite with the king and the people of Judah in their alarms about the threatened invasion by the kings of Syria and Samaria, and in their purpose to form an alliance with the king of Assyria. And he shall be for a sanctuary, the Lord, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And, he so is he not? Talking about Christ. And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. Ellicott lays this out in the illustration right here. I really like the imagery involved. To enter into fellowship with Jehovah is to enter into the sanctuary. He who stands on the stone or the floor, the ground of that holy place, which forms the threshold of that sanctuary, has gained an asylum. But to do that requires the clear vision of faith. He who walks blindly without faith may stumble on that very stone of the threshold. And what was safety and life for others might for him bring pain and shame. You see, without faith, and Paul the Apostle speaks on this, without faith, you can't stand before God. Without total reliance upon him and without giving all to him, if you hold anything like Satan, if you try to say, well, I can stand on my own feet, your very breath comes from God, and he will not allow such pride to be before him. It's a sin. So Simon Peter says, even the head cornerstone is to those who stumble at the word, being disobedient, a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. The very rock in which people stand in front of God, which is Christ, the very rock becomes a stone in which others trip over. It lies in the nature of the case that the fall is not necessarily final and irretrievable. We're told about how the Jews are partly blinded. Men may be braised, but not ground to powder, as Christ talks about. May stumble so that they may rise again. We've seen many Jews over all these years. They have come to Christ, or we call them Messianic Jews. And I will wait upon the Lord that hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord hath given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth in the Mount Zion. He is content to wait. Even though Jehovah hide his face, though predictions seem to fail and all seems dark and hopeless, there is perhaps a contrast between the fact that Jehovah hides his face from the house of Jacob, that all is dark for the nation's life as such, while yet the prophet in his own individuality can look for him with the eye of faith. And Jesus tells us this. He says, the Father is a spirit. He says, and those that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. It is not the things that can be seen in which relates to God. All these things are dying. These material things, the physical things of this life, it's all dying, even your very body. But it's the thing within. I really like what C.S. Lewis said once. He says, you don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. This thing is just on rent right now. We'll one day have glorified bodies in which will not be able to die. And in these next verses, we see about how the people, they weren't content to wait upon the Lord. They went to soothsayers and such. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and that mutter. Should not a people seek unto their God for the living, to the dead, to the law, and to the testimony? If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. And they shall pass through it, hardly bestead and hungry. And it shall come to pass that when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves, and curse their king and their God, and look upward. How many do this? They curse God whenever something bad comes upon them, and suddenly they look up afterwards and they think, well, where's God? And they shall look into the earth then. Once that they find nothing in heaven, then they look into the earth, and behold, trouble and darkness, dimness of anguish, and they shall be driven to darkness. And they shall look into the earth, finding no help from heaven. They turn their eyes downward, looking hither and thither for comfort, and behold, trouble and darkness all around. Many words expressing the same thing are put together to signify the variety and extremity and continuance of their miseries. He shall cast his eyes upward and look down to the earth, and lo, distress and darkness, gloom, tribulation, and accumulated darkness. Accumulated darkness, that struck me. Oh man, it gets darker and darker. It's a darkness that can be felt. We don't know what a darkness that can be felt is like. It's being surrounded in pure evil, and that's what hell is. Now, due to the great importance of the Isaiah 9 study, I'm going to leave this video very short. I'm going to separate these two chapters. So join me in Isaiah 9, my friends. Very, very worth it. Trust me. Got a peace be with you.